He acted as if God was outside of us.
Right.
And then he has mercy on us. Instead of seeing that God is co-feeling the suffering and the hurt and the pain that we're feeling, he's feeling it simultaneously with us.
Right.
That's actually the only way you can meet the standard of mercy, is if you can identify with the suffering of the one. Right? You talking about the message I just preached?
Yeah.
Man, every time I tell myself I won't cry when I preach. I won't cry. I won't. Man, I bawl like a baby. Yeah, you bawl like a baby. But I played that Brennan Manning clip at the end, right? To just drive the point home, where a Hasidic rabbi in Ukraine says. And it's interesting that Rusty's here. A Hasidic rabbi, he starts off with a Hasidic rabbi in the Ukraine, rabbi, but he says his name, says he learned the meaning of love from two drunken peasants. And then he goes on to tell the story about these two guys, glossy-eyed, they're in the tavern, it was morning time, and they're just falling over each other, drunk, professing their love for one another, and this or that, and then out of the one's mouth, I don't know if it was Peter or Ivan, but it says to him, Ivan, tell me what hurts me. And Peter, well, how do I know what causes you pain? Then how can you say you love me if you don't know what causes me pain? Quick and swift, right? And so the rabbi obviously got a revelation that God knows our pain intimately. Yes. Our deepest fears, our deepest insecurities, our deepest hurts. He's tasted them. He made himself, the root word of the word mercy means to bow your head to an equal in the Hebrew.
Right.
And so God bowed his head to us as an equal. He made himself vulnerable to our suffering and to our hurt and to our sorrow and to our grief. He took upon himself our griefs and our sorrows, is what Isaiah said. So he submitted himself to us in our insecurity and fear and hurt. And he tasted everything we tasted, everything we feel. He knows it intimately, right? And he knows it intimately, simultaneously with us, right? And now we can see like God, when we're in those moments, stretching forth his hand and touching us on the shoulder and say, I know, me too. I'm feeling that with you right now. Right? And he goes on to tell a story about the pastor that resigned from his church and then abandoned his family that same day. And then goes off into a Vermont logging facility and gets this little metal bus. And it's like 0 degrees. He's got his little portable space heater in that metal bus. And it's 0 degrees outside and that little portable space heater breaks. And he picks up that space heater. I hate you, God. I hate you, Christ. And he chucks that thing through the wall. And a big hole busts open out in that metal little thing he's staying in. Well, the 0 degrees that's outside is now in there. And he goes on talking about, I hate you, Christ. I hate this Christian stuff. I'm done with you. I'm done with Christianity. And he just starts weeping there in the middle of this thing, crying. And then all of a sudden, he heard the voice of Jesus inside of him. Not outside of him. Not up there somewhere. Inside of him. He heard him say, I know, Kevin. It's okay. I understand. And then he heard Jesus weeping with him. Not about him. Weeping with him. That means he's tasting his hurt with him. Right? It had such a deep and profound effect on the guy that the guy immediately got up and went and reconciled with his family and then went and reconciled with his church and ended up pastoring the largest, most spirit-filled church in Seattle, Washington. St. Luke's Episcopal, I think. Just from that. Just from tasting and knowing that Jesus, God, because Jesus is God. You're talking about God. That his heart was torn open inside of him, feeling what he was feeling, and that he was hurting with him. It changes everything. See, when you really get a revelation of God like that, when you walk through hurt, listen, man, you feel a warm embrace. You don't feel alone anymore. The thing that causes our sorrows and our griefs and the pain that come against us to be so magnified is we feel alone. It isn't just that we feel this. It's then all of a sudden we feel isolated, detached. No one knows. No one cares. It's just me. Right? And when your heart really gets a revelation that no. God is there. And he is feeling that with you. And he is not just with you, he's in you. And he is feeling that same thing. You are not alone. He is not indifferent. He is not outside of you. He's not busy thinking that you're getting what you deserved because of your sin. He's not busy thinking that, man. He's hurting with you. Right? And when you can really see God with you that way and know God with you that way, it changes everything. When the world comes to destroy your life.
And it will.
Oh, it definitely will. And we see this embodied with Jesus. What was Jesus' salvation when he was on the cross? Hebrews says he cried out to the one he knew cared. That's what Hebrews says about Jesus. He saw God's eyes were full of mercy.
Right.
He saw that when he was in this place, hurting and suffering and confusion was coming against him. And he was being mocked and spit on. And everybody was telling him he wasn't the son and that he was all alone and that he had been forsaken by God. And what was he going to do? He had a revelation that God's eyes were full of mercy. What that meant to Jesus was that the Father is with me, even in me, hurting with me. He is intimately acquainted with what I'm going through and what it's doing to me. Abba. And that caused him to cry out to Abba. Because he saw that God's eyes were full of mercy. That's why it says, blessed are the merciful. That means blessed are those who sees God's eyes are full of mercy. Why are you blessed? Because you find yourself strengthened in the inner man. In the day that death comes to your house. Go read in Hebrews. He cried out to the one who cared that could save his soul. Right? And you don't cry out to the guy unless you know that he knows. I mean, listen, if you got some problem in your life, imagine I come try and tell you about how you're going to find that thing fixed or healed. But now imagine that I ain't never experienced any of that myself. What's your mind going to start thinking? How does he know?
Exactly.
Now listen, this is just a worldly example. A person by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit can know a lot of things. Paul was never married, yet he taught people about marriage. He didn't have no kids, yet he taught people about kids. And I've seen this example. I was counseling somebody about their kids one time, and they were like so impressed with everything I was saying. And you know, it's not me, it's God, obviously. I only have no freaking kids. But then after they were so impressed with everything I said, they come to the conclusion that I must have a lot of kids. And so then they ask, how many kids do you have? 0. Now listen, if you think they didn't think for a second, well, why are we listening to this? But the whole example is, none of us want to hear from anybody that hasn't walked in our shoes.
Right.
Because we immediately say they don't know. Right? It's like a block. You don't know. Right? We even sing, nobody knows the trouble I see. Right? That's how we look at it. See, but God knows this about human. He made human. He's intimate with human. Before God made man, he first dreamt up, where do I want to spend all eternity dwelling? What do I think can maximize all that I am and all that I have in myself? What can give the most expression to myself? And he dreamt up a human body. So he first decided where he wanted to dwell for all eternity. And what would be the best thing to dwell in. Then he says, let's make man in the image of what we just dreamt for ourselves. Right? And so God is intimate with human. And he knows that human won't actually hear him or actually come to him or call out to him unless they can see God knows. Unless they can feel his hand on their shoulder when there's something. Me too, man. I know. Right? And then what happens is that you cry and fall into his arms. Right? You have a good cry with the God of all glory. I tell you what, after you have a good cry with the God of all glory about your hurt, knowing that he hurt and felt the same hurt with you, and you see he's crying with you, you're not just crying alone. Listen, man, you find great strength come alive inside of you. Right? You find like somebody knows. Somebody gets me. Why do you think we want to go to support groups? We feel so much comfort, we find somebody else that can relate to us. Listen, man, God relates to you. And when you see that, man, you will find great strength to conquer the world. God's on my side. You begin to care less and less who's not on your side when God's on my side. Right? You find a boldness to say and to act, right? that isn't there when, well, what are these people going to think? What are they going to say? You know?
Right.
You're missing